Okay, thank you. I'd like to call I got to use my microphone. I don't hear the echo back, so I don't sense if it works. I'd like to call our meeting to order. It's the Town of Southington Board of Finance meeting, July 27th, 2022. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, our roll call, please.
Sure. Mrs. Zoni?
Here.
Mr. Morrison?
Here.
Mr. Bedoin?
Here.
Mr. Pocock?
Here.
Mr. Lebenik?
Here.
Chairman Leary?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. There are no public hearing items, so we'll move right into the old business. Do we have a motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the June 8th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections, adjustments to those minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Financial state of the town?
Yes. Okay, revenues versus budget. We're at the end of June. This is technically the end of the year, but we still have lots to go. But looking at revenues, I might as well just look at the overall instead of line. And you could follow along in your reports because it ties to what I have. So the property tax overall came in at 1.9 higher than license permit and fees are 103,000 over budget. Investment revenue finally kicked up a little bit. Between that and the additional KERMA funds that we received, we have state grants. We're at 764,000 over budget. Federal grants are 117,000 under budget. Service charges are 274,000 over budget. That's after we took some funds out and reappropriated. Actually came in at 2. Just shows you just how crazy busy they are. Oh yeah, and building as well. Building budgeted 900,000. Let's see. Back to where we were. Other revenue 62,000. So we have our revenue budget is 1.3 million over budget. Looking at our expenditures, I anticipate from if you look to the back, we're so here on your report, we have 155,000 as the year-to-date expended. Expenditures, plus I'm projecting that we're going to be spending additional funds. So if our total revenue is at 161 million, we're going to have a surplus of. You get too excited.
The sheet.
Between the carry forward amount, which is $1.9 million, and our non-lapsing account for 19, 20, and 21, which is $2.3 million, we're at $4.2 million.
So it only got the reserves.
Yeah. That's where it looks right now. We still have to see how some of these expenditures are going to pan out. We're still paying expenditures as they're coming. Then, obviously, we're anticipating a few of them not coming in on time. That's why we have the carry forward. Any questions on the revenues? And this is still projected, there's still.
Yeah.
Change. Okay. Capital projects, I owe you guys a report.
Don't retire.
So I can't leave until I get you the report. That's what Mark said. No, I will. I will.
We'll have the
It's
report.
hard to get things
We'll have
done
it for
in
the
3
September
days
meeting.
when you can't sometimes do them in 5.
Yeah.
So we're working our way through things, so.
Okay, subcommittees, sewer committee, Mr. Morrison, anything?
Yeah, a few things. We've had a couple of meetings since our last Board of Finance meeting. So there's a few things. First off, I was meeting on June 9th and the meeting on July 14th. June 9th, actually, this isn't financial, but we just announced that the sewer upgrade project, which is actually we called the phosphorus removal upgrade project because most of it was around the phosphorus building, they'd actually received an award, the 2022 Connecticut Engineering Excellence Grand Award. It was received in June, and there was a celebratory dinner which staff and some of our engineers attended, and it's something that I think we need to recognize. It was a wonderfully done project, and I think a lot of credit is due not just to our consulting engineers but to the staff as well. So, now to move to the financial stuff. The bidding for the 3 pump station projects, Juddbrook, Old Turnpike and Pattonbrook, that will complete our pump station redo. We received 4 bids, and C.H. Nickerson was the winning vendor. They had essentially they had bid $3.3 million. It was a bit more than we thought at the time, but that's due to the cost of cost of everything that has gone up. Particularly, it was at least $300,000 or $400,000 over what we expected. C.H. Nickerson was awarded. We awarded it to them, and it went to the town council, which they approved. Okay, third thing. This is a time extension for the Plantsville pump station that's being done as we speak. It's a no-cost change order, but the reason it was put into place was to extend the contract by 143 days to November of this year, November 30th. And the reason being, again, economic issues, this time supply chain issues. They couldn't get the parts in, and so we gave them the ability to complete the project, beyond that date. All right, as the plant itself, this is and it isn't a financial issue. There's some warranty work that needs to be done on various things in the plant, the clarifier, the nitrification tank, the final settling tank, and that's to do with a warranty issue that came up with one of the contractors that had to be fixed. That's been fixed now and it's out of the bond for the project, so there's no financial implications at all, but it's work that has to be done. And it can't be done until some of it till downstream a bit, because you have to empty essentially some of these tanks to do the relining, and that will happen in the winter. Okay, let's see. Finally, we recommended, which I think we talked about last time when I gave this report, we recommended some changes on the 345-32 mandatory connection to public sewers. We asked for 2 things. One is, the first was to increase the repair cost from $1,000 to $10,000. By repair, I mean it's unlawful according to our policy for a repair to take place on anything private, such as a septic tank, cesspool, if public sewers are available, to be linked into. And repair, it essentially says the repair should be in excess of $1,000. We thought that was out of date, and we raised it to $10,000. And the other thing was to completely get rid of the mandatory connection to public sewers, where I'll read it out because it's kind of just to make sure that it's correct. The owners of all houses, buildings, or properties used for human occupancy, employment, recreation, or other purposes situated within the town and abutting any street, alley, or right-of-way in which there may in the future be located a public sanitary sewer of the town shall be required to install at the sole expense of the owners a building sewer to connect the building drain to the public sanitary sewer in accordance with the provisions of this section within 5 years after the date of official notification of the availability of such public sewer to accept such waste. And we we recommended to remove that in its entirety. And I believe it's gone to the town council, and I don't know if
It's with
they...
the town attorney right now.
It's with the town attorney, okay, sorry. So it hasn't gone to the town council yet. And that's it from the sewer committee.
So that's no requirement to connect.
No.
There was
Okay.
it goes back a long way. What used to happen when the town put in a lot of infrastructure with sewers, which we haven't done in a long period of time, we put the sewers in, the people had to pay the frontal assessment, and we gave them 5 years to tap in. Perfectly honest with you, we did not enforce that a lot because the people said, well, I put a septic system in 2 years ago, it's good for 20 years. So we waited until it failed, and then when it failed, we tapped them in at that point. So we weren't enforcing the 5-year provision, at least in the many years I've been here. So that being said, when I was asked my opinion on that, I simply said, I'm fine with getting rid of that because it's usually when the system fails. And by fails, that means it can't be repaired. $10,000, unfortunately, now for public, for people, $10,000 is not a lot for a septic system now. So that being said, I was fine going from the 1,000 because 1,000 is nothing. Some people pay $300 to pump it out.
It really says once you spend 10,000,
you can't spend more than 10,000 because now you're going to have to connect.
If you have the sewer.
Yeah, is that correct? So I was fine with that, and I know that the town attorney is working at that.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, Public Works, Mr. Pocock, Mr. Bedoin.
I'd like to revise that first. Mr. Bedoin had sent in his resignation, and I have been reappointed to that position on the Public Works again. So, the sweeping has been done. It's completed, the street sweeping. Tilcon has started the road work for the year. All of the construction projects, the Trail to Lazy Lane, Plantsville, Spring Street Bridge, Newell Street Bridge, Route 10 and 322, all of that stuff is moving along as anticipated, although things are still running kind of slowly with the state and with yard metals. There was some discussion about the charging stations for the electronic vehicles. Apparently, they're on town property right now, and they're running out of their leases, and we've been told on our committee that there was discussion as to whether or not they'd renew the leases, move them to different locations, because right now the town is paying for those. And if you go to a public place such as, for instance, Stop and Shop, then you have to pay for it, for the usage. And some of the people feel that it's not fair to the townspeople to have us paying for the charging of someone else's private vehicle. So there was discussion as to whether or not the town should do it, if they do it at all, where they should move them to. And there's no decision from that committee. They said they'd do some research on it. It was also suggested possibly we would go ask the town to look into, if they're replacing vehicles, to possibly look into hybrid vehicles where it's possible and where it's reasonable. They are gas and battery, not electric, and they get better mileage, gas mileage. So apparently the town had no plans at that time, according to the highway department, to use any electric vehicles now or in the future, so if the town's not going to use them, then why would we have charging stations?
Were they forced in by a grant or something?
I don't
Where'd they
know
come
that.
from?
I don't know.
The charging
I've been on-
stations?
Yeah.
I believe it was.
Not forced, they were just a grant that we applied for and received. They're outdated now, of course, because they take a long time to charge. These are the old systems. The issue that we have now is where to put the new ones that we're applying for more grants for that through Eversource in the state. But you got to have the power there. So, you know, what they're talking about is, can we put them in municipal parking lots? Well, that's all well and good, but we don't own a lot of municipal parking lots. We only own 2 municipal parking lots. All the rest are leased. And that also means that you got to bring power to that. And the power could be 220. It's not just because
Why are we applying for them in the first place? What's the impetus?
the impetus is as part of the situation of the town council saying that we want to be more green community. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it more beneficial for someone to go to, for instance, if they want to go to the library, if they want to go to town hall, if they want to go to the municipal center, some places they'll spend at least a half hour at, because these charging stations are between 20, depending on what you get, 20 minutes to up to an hour on the powerhouse ones. So right now we're looking at it to see what we can get for a grant, but the power is the big thing, it's getting the power to them. So it's great to put them, you know, and all people talk about, well, put them in one of the municipal parking lots, but you got to get power to there. So that's what we're looking at also.
But it is our power going into people's private vehicles. I mean, that's a,
No, but that's the second question. The second question is, do we put the credit cards in there? That's the other part. You can put a credit card system on it, but that's something that the council and this board will look at afterward.
in that case, most people would charge. Buy one, you're likely, not likely, you're almost 100% of the time you're buying a charger at home.
Yes, you would think that, but if someone is visiting
Yeah,
and
they're
they
visiting,
see one there,
traveling,
they see,
I get it, but I just, you know, I look at electric cars similar to fossil fuel cars that, you know, the owner is responsible for fueling them. And when I see the town fueling them, it just gives me a little pause.
Well, the governor is also being very aggressive with this also. You're going to see over the next 10 or 12 years on our major routes, there are going to be stations quite a bit, because that's the point of what the governor's using.
Paid for by the state of, I mean, the fuel paid for
Unknown.
by the state of, no.
Unknown. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it could be a charging station using a credit card. I think that's the way, from what I'm hearing from the Public Works Committee, that's the way they were leaning. They didn't take a vote on it, but
All right.
in this particular case, more to follow. But it's not as easy as just putting them up. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They're
it's
not-
infrastructure.
It's infrastructure.
Yeah.
And we did have an electric car.
Yeah, one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they, on
That
Public
was-
Works, they said no.
That was
so.
part of the grant.
No,
Well, the previous Public Works.
Yeah, it's an easy question to ask, because what happens is that it's got to be a vehicle that we can also work with. We work off the state bids, and when the state starts working out the bids to get better vehicles for us, for hybrids, then we'll work off of that bid. So we're not close to the idea, but right now, we're not in the situation where we have heavy vehicles. You're not going to get heavy vehicles to do that. We don't plow roads with obviously, but some of our smaller vehicles, we'll be looking into doing that.
We had one just incident down in Hamden with the bus
Oh,
that
yeah.
it created a major problem, like 8-9 hours of fire. Can't put water on. They had personal knowledge on Route 2. Cars burnt up and tied up the road for 10 hours. That has opened up some eyes, because they're serious. That's serious business. And I'm all green, but you put power into your own house, it'll cost you $3,000.
Fire situation is something I read about a couple of years ago and brought it to Mark to bring to the fire department.
There's certainly,
Because
obviously,
it's-
we know where the government wants to go, but the infrastructure currently isn't there.
Right.
Chance for towns to do, Southington to do what they want to put, what is it, 128? They want to have all buses that are going to be, it's not easy to do, but anyway.
See? School buses, if that happened, they'd be,
More to follow, I guess, is what we'll say.
well, they're
Yeah.
buying school buses. They're all over the place.
Well,
Electric.
there is the feds
Yeah,
and the
and
state
can't
do
use
want us
water
to go that route with
Then-
school buses in the near
Some
future.
kind of chemicals. Yeah, you can't use
I
water on
don't
them.
disagree with it, just the safety part.
I do, absolutely. Sorry. I mean, it's, I think we're going down incredible crazy road here. We have needs. We're jamming in a massive amount of stuff in a very short period of time, of which there are very few solutions that people are comfortable with. Whenever you do that, you're going to get into a massive amount of problems. So we're just seeing the start of it. So slow down, come up with realistic, solutions, infrastructure. We don't have them yet. I disagree. We have them with electric buses. Wait for them to come and then think about it. But don't do it ahead of all this stuff, really. That's straying far afield from financial issues.
Sue, did you cover the, or you want me to cover that?
You can do that.
I mean, the Public Works has really worked very hard on trying to correct. And state will not give us a traffic.
But I have to say this: it's not recommended.
Right.
It's not an issue of cost, and this is why when I see it in the paper, I get antsy when people say, "Well, nobody wants to pay for a traffic light. That's what we're doing." It's not based upon all the calculations. It's not required, and it's not recommended. So what the town has done through this board and the town council, we have put appropriated monies to put the flashers on both ends,
Right.
and also the new stop signs. So they're all there.
LED lights.
And what's that?
There's going to be LED
Right.
light there, so it'll be a lot brighter.
Right.
A lot of things being. I will say point blank, I didn't agree with the study that was done by the pre.
I have a lot of
Everybody
faith.
could have done that,
I have a lot of faith in our traffic division.
Our own
our town
traffic division, I'm talking about the outside.
I do think that we have taken it step by step. Instead of jumping off to an end game, we take it step by step using the chief and the deputy chief's
It worked
recommendations.
very well. I mean,
And
they
we
put
have-
a
we
good
have-
report together.
We have spent funding in, and we'll see where that goes from there. But if you look at it, not to make it an easier situation, you look at all those accidents, because we have them all on video. They are not a situation, yes, they happen there, but if you look at those videos, it is driver error over and over and over again. And I'd like to say that I could stop driver error, but there's a flashing red light that people just blow right through. So, and I've seen the videos, and you could see them, I mean, if you want to see them. The fact of the matter is what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people acknowledge the fact you're heading into an intersection. And those flashing lights are the best way to do it at this point. And huge red stop signs.
Well, it's been a work in progress. Like, I mean, it's out there, but with that LED lights when they do it, you come down that hill, and I'm well aware of what.
What did the driver say? It's a flashing
yellow?
red. It's a flashing red light and a huge stop sign.
Yeah.
So now we have the ones coming down the hill and coming up from the highways. The flashing lights, like you've seen it before with the speed on it, just to get them to slow down in case the person who happens to be on the crossroad goes through the stop sign. So we're trying to slow down the through traffic because the traffic that's supposed to stop isn't stopping in no cases. So
That's not foreign traffic, like outsiders. Most of that traffic, I'm just assuming, because I'm not an expert on this, but it's our own people.
It is
That's
our-
not a road that people traveling from New York to Boston,
No.
they have to go on, they're unaware.
Yeah.
This is our
That's
own
right.
folks.
Yeah. The town is spending serious resources, and we're listening to the people who know what they're talking about, and we're getting to that.
Mark, well, I'm curious. I'm sure there's a long answer here, but the high level, what was the process that we went through where we ultimately determined recommendation was not a stoplight? Can you just give me the high level steps we went through?
Yeah, the ultimate authority obviously is the police. Worried about a stoplight because stoplights cause as many accidents according to the research that they have. Coming onto a street like actually coming down the hill, They were afraid, especially in interesting conditions, that would cause a problem. So with that, how do you get the people to slow down as much as possible on the through road? And that's what we talked about, the large stop signs coming through the crossroad, and more importantly, as you're coming down, because the accidents, not all of them, but they're normally coming down in a southerly direction,
Yeah.
and then across because they're going faster. There's not a lot of time to speed up from the highway to that point because you're coming through Plantsville, and so that was the one. So we're going to have flashing lights put up. They've already been ordered, so they should be going up soon. If not, we'll do a check after that.
I'm just curious, when you said that the traffic lights can cause as many issues or cause issues as well, was that based on that specific study that Ed
was-
referenced, or was that just a general understanding
That
of
was
what traffic lights
based
do?
upon the understanding of our chief traffic authority, Chief Daly and Chief Palmeri. They've stated many times at the Public Works Committee that they are dead set against putting a traffic light.
Okay, thank you.
And I utmost faith
Sure.
in both of them.
Thank you.
So I wasn't condemning them.
No, I didn't think you were. No.
No, I said an outside report come in.
Yeah.
I read that report, and
There were a
I
couple
say it
of,
the way it is. When I
I
them
paid
guys-
for that. I paid for that report.
I know you did, but you're trying to
Now it's
cover
in
the
the shredder.
bases, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, they are doing a splendid job.
there were a couple of additional things on that committee that affect the town financially. First is that the committee was, the staff was asked to look into trying to get Safe Streets and Roads grants for the West Street corridor. And they said they would look into that because of the construction and the expansion going on there. And the other one was something that I'm questioning personally, is that there's apparently $500,000 in a sidewalk budget, and some of the people on that group, on the committee, want to add sidewalks between Southington High School and Beacon Pharmacy going down Flanders Street by the cemetery. There are some sidewalks there are other places that there aren't. It's been looked at previously on that committee when I was there before, and it was determined that if you ask people by letter, as they do on the committee, do you want sidewalks in front of your house, this will be your cost, because 60% of the cost of sidewalks is covered by the property owner, 40% by the town. I'm sorry, the other way. 40% by the property owner, 60%.
You had it right the first time.
Okay. Yeah, 60%.
40 me, 60 them.
Yeah, 60% by the property owner, and then they're responsible for maintenance of that sidewalk. And that people always say, no, they don't want it when that's done. And then there were some people on the committee said, well, let's just do it anyway. And I said, well, where's the money going to come from? And they said, well, the town will pay for it. And I said, well, if you do that, then you set a precedent. And that then holds you responsible for all sidewalk installation for the entire town. And I told them that I would never go for that. So that's going to become a point of contention in this area, because some of these people really want that sidewalk. And they say that it's dangerous for kids who are walking, but with 22 or more buses going to the high school every day, which is their concern, of students walking to the high school, any of those buses could stop at those stations along the way and pick up kids that are on that street. So that's going to be coming up in the future, and it's just an expense that's not in their budget, and I'll be fighting against that.
Thank you. Any questions on Public Works? Open Space, Mr. Pocock?
We've got a lot of things, basically, that's, we've been trying to, helping us out in that part. But we also, had volunteers.
Any questions on Open Space? Self-insurance, Mr. Lebenik, Mr. Bedoyan?
Yeah, sure. We have the numbers for fiscal year 22. So we ended for the year just north of 25 million on a budget of 23.5 million, so around $1.5 million over, or about 6 or 7%. The good news for the budget for the year is it had looked at previous points in the year that it could be worse. So we had a good June, so to be $1.5 million over is better than what we were talking about a few months before that. And compared to the prior fiscal year, we were right around 20% higher. A lot of discussion about what that means. Obviously, we've had a string of a number of good years relative to budget and self-insurance. So being 6 or 7 points over this year over budget and 20 or so points over prior. Obviously, with a prior and the fiscal year before that were pandemic years where our budget, like so many others, or like all of us really, were impacted by the pandemic. A lot of discussion about whether the 25 million number that we landed at is a result of pent-up demand. There are differing opinions on that, including various members on the committee and our consultant. It's acknowledged that there may be some level of pent-up demand there, but what our consultant had done was take a look at the last pre-pandemic full fiscal year, and if you trend that at a generally accepted trend level to where we landed and what we're projecting next year, it looks that we're essentially kind of normal, maybe even a little bit better than trend. So it's a return to normal. It's just a significant increase over the prior fiscal year and over budget because that was impacted by the pandemic. But again, if you could put yourself for the purposes of this illustration in a trending the last pre-pandemic year, we would say we landed this year about where we would have expected to land if we tried to forecast 3 fiscal years ago. So there's a lot of assumptions in there. There's a lot of analysis, and this will be something that we continue to analyze moving forward.
And what's the 23 budget?
Well, the 23.5 was the prior fiscal year budget, and we landed at just north of 25 million. So we were $1.5 million over budget, or around 6 or 7%.
What's our new budget?
25.5.
So we're there. If we think 25 is normal, we're properly budgeted.
Yes, I mean
if that's the assumption that
the only thing we ever know is
25 is a normal run rate, then a budget of 25.5 is. Or another way, said, if we were budgeting today, knowing what you know now, our number holds.
I think in fairness, we set this budget back in March, and there continues to be more information every month as we get further. I won't say further away from the pandemic, but further away from March of 2020. You can define where you want to define where we are in the pandemic. I don't know, in fairness, if we voted on the budget today, the self-insurance committee, where everybody would land. But I think 25.5 is the number that we have for next year.
Okay. Questions?
Let me just, Kevin,
Okay.
is that fair?
No, that's fair to say.
Okay.
So, so if you look at it this way too, if you take the COVID year, we had a surplus of like 2. They can consider this year, which it could be pandemic. Thoughts from the insurance company. Add the two together, we still had a surplus. Something that a pandemic that we haven't seen. We put that budget together that year, so
Big picture too, I'm hearing timing, like during the pandemic year, a lot of elective stuff is put off, elective and preventive, whatever, only emergent stuff is in.
Right.
And then you get into the other years, okay, people go and make up for lost time, so you could have a timing difference across
Yeah.
the years in addition
There's no
to
doubt.
achieving a flat run rate.
I mean, it was a good 6 months where there was no surgeries, right?
I guess I'm comfortable that 25.5 is a reasonable number.
I think it's reasonable. That's accurate.
Any more questions? Economic strike, Mr. Morrison?
We had a quick meeting just to look at to take advantage of the STEEP grant, and we chatted with a developer in town who wishes to build some industrial stuff, which we would provide. It was 500K, was it? $500,000. And we voted on that, we approved it, and it goes to the town council.
What are we, the town, doing?
Well,
This
it's
is a steep
it's a steep grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd be
We're-
applying for a steep grant to assist this development.
And it's, but there is we had an emergency meeting because there's a time constraint. It has to be done by August 9th, I believe. But they came out with it very quickly, and it was the only one we had, I think. Unless we had any others queued up.
Questions?
We do need the industrial space. We don't have any right now. We do need the inventory, so it's excellent for the town, and we can take advantage of the grant.
Okay, anything on investments other than our revenue report?
No.
Okay, liaison work with the Board of Fire Commissioners?
I didn't get the,
Ladder truck's under repair.
That was a self-inflicted wound this time. Hit it ourselves. We can't blame anybody for hitting that. We did our own. Yeah.
Any other committee reports? Or any general board communications? Okay, any public communications? Indicate there's no one from the public here. I don't know if that's, we always never know how to read that. Either
You're just doing a great
there's
job.
trust, there's a number of reasons way to read it, but we have nobody from the public. We welcome the public here. If anybody's watching, please come out, come down. We have plenty of room. And
Air conditioned. It's nice.
It's lovely.
And we'll turn on the
if
lights.
you call
if
ahead
it
of
shows
time,
up.
we'll make it entertaining.
It's really
Make it
cool in
entertaining.
here, really cool.
Reviewing any long-range plans and priorities, anything there? We're able till next meeting, our
Well,
review of the open items. and
long-range
carry
plans
forward.
are obvious. We have interviews coming up next week.
Next week, yeah.
Next week with 3 candidates, one of which we hope to be our next finance director. Obviously, Amelia is going to stay until we have a finance director, and probably for a little bit after that, too. That being said, the chair and myself will be doing the interviews. Char and Amelia next week.
Okay, we have our consent agenda next. I'm looking just to see if we just take them all at once. The reason we do this, for the public that's watching, this is all money already received by the town. We're not making any decisions. All we're doing is appropriating it back to the line item on which, the town could spend it. So if we get, for example, if a vehicle is involved in an accident, we get an insurance settlement that goes to the town of Southington, and what we do here is we appropriate it back to the department and the line item who owns the vehicle so they can go get it repaired. We're just putting the money back in the department and the line item so it could be spent. So there's nothing here other than that maneuver. So I'd like to take all of them together, read them all only once, and then take them together. The first one, appropriation, 17,042, the police department for a bulletproof vest grant. The next one, B, $1,198, police department K-9 program donations. The third one, appropriation of the new year, 22-23 year, for $665, the police department for DARE supplies. The next one, appropriation the 21-22 year for $39,338 for Central Dispatch, the E911 state subsidy. Next one, appropriation in the 22-23 year for $8,507, library, the Connecticut Humanities Strategic Plan revenue. The next one, appropriation the 21-22 year, $15,966 in the capital budget for open space conservation. Next one, item G, appropriation 21-22 fiscal year for $284,281 for the capital fund to receive in the LoSiP grant. H, an appropriation 22-23 fiscal year for $1,200, the police department for DARE supplies, and an appropriation 22-23 fiscal year for $4,000 for the turf field contracted services. That's all the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion to take them all together?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda appropriations as read.
Seconded.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Just one comment for me is where some of these donations, these lower amounts here, are donations by public to the PD. And it should be noted that there are a lot of people that do care about it. It's really nice.
I'm reading about DARE. I didn't know if we were still running the DARE program. DARE donations, but in seeing the letter, it's also for prevention programs.
Yeah, DARE's name has changed. It's a new it's a new name. I wish I had it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's a totally new program that's the police department and youth services are working together on.
I see the letter, but I just didn't see that notation. Okay, any questions on the consent agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The consent agenda is approved 6-0. Now we have a 10 manager memo and a couple multi-part ones, and then we'll wrap it up. So the first one, a transfer 21-22 fiscal year of $2,900 animal control building maintenance.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. Number two, a transfer in the 21-22 fiscal year of $57,559 Police Department camera equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Number three, transfer 1,100 library dues and conferences.
Make a motion approved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number three carries 6-0. Number four, transfer 21-22 fiscal year, $2,000 even, fire department office supplies.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. Number five, number five's in a lot of parts. It's all for the 21-22 year first piece, 2,300 highway parks equipment maintenance, 2,100 highway parks building maintenance, 8,400 highway parks grounds maintenance, $831 highway parks uniform cleaning service, $4,133 highway parks overtime pay, $3,645 highway parks gasoline, $3,304 bulky waste overtime pay, $1,562 the John Way Show Municipal Center utilities.
John, if I can amend something
Yeah.
for you? The Highway Parks gasoline account, I'd like to add $30 to that. It's actually $3,675.
Got it. With the correction, $3,675.
Thank you.
And this is just year-end
Clean-
geography,
Yeah,
as I call it. And it's all transferring to be able to
correct.
take from the items we don't need and put to the items we do. Okay, do we have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the 8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0. Number six, transfer in the 21-22 year in three parts. 1,500 Police Department utilities, 1,100 Police Department longevity, and $681 central dispatch overtime.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Number 6 carries 6-0. Number 7 is a transfer in two parts for the 2021-2022 year, $450 Finance Department regular wages, $543 Finance Department office supplies.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries, number 7 carries 6-0. Number 8 is a transfer of 21-22 fiscal year, $38,380 for accumulated payout.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 9 is the non-lapsing account for the Board of Education. So number 9, the carry forward to education non-lapsing account for 2019, carrying forward $9,737. The carry forward for 2020 year, $1,272,267. And the carry forward for the 2021 year, $1,011,789.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, probably not anything to talk about tonight, but just want to suggest that we chat about this at the next meeting where we talk about the long-range planning. The reason I say that is because we now have considerable assets available to deal with what we believe will happen next year when we have we're going to have a certain perfect storm of economic issues to do with energy prices, recession, supply chain issues, whatever. And we have $2.3 million in essentially sitting in cash in the schools. And we have a certain amount of money in our reserves, which I think we only put 100K in. But we do have several million there. And they're both assets, I think, that can be used, maybe not used what we traditionally do, but maybe can be used to avoid any issues next year. So, for instance, the reserves, obviously, we could maybe, above the minimum, we could dip into maybe more than we usually do in order to prevent, bonding downstream, which would affect us 2 years, 3 years, down the road. Number one. Number two, this 2.3 million can actually be used by the schools for, the legislation reads, K through 12 services. It's got to be used for education. But you could use that for, they could use it for bonding. Obviously, we've got stuff going before the public in November, $24 million worth. Be used to defray some of that so we don't get hit again further downstream, 2 or 3 years downstream. It could be used to maybe start one of those particular projects, athletic fields, for instance. It could also be used for operational costs too. There's nothing in the legislation that stops that. In the sense of maybe, downplaying money to be raised from the public next year, and instead, give people a tax break and use that for an operational thing, obviously without, incurring a fiscal cliff downstream. So these things, I think, should be treated as assets rather than just money sitting around. We do with the reserves, but and I think we should, behooves us maybe to discuss this, and it behooves us to maybe chat with our friends at the Board of Ed and talk about, we all understand it's going to be an interesting year next year. Like every year's been interesting, but this one maybe more than most. And I think it behooves us to do anything we can to, use the assets that we have to defray any issues on our businesses and our taxpayers. So next month, I think you said, John, Mr. Chairman.
September,
September.
September you might have the Board of Ed here too.
Yeah.
Because
We do.
Because they'll be coming in
For
to
the
do their
year.
22
Right.
carry forward. So,
It's a good conversation to
Excellent,
have.
yeah.
But I'm, one side of me says that they probably already have this earmarked and they're well aware of it, but we need to have those chats. And I often talked about having more frequent chats going forward. So once the summer clears, we'll likely be meeting with them maybe monthly, just so that we're in lockstep and there are no surprises, that we're all working completely together as we move forward. So, good points.
Yeah, but
Good points.
the thing about the discussion is it will be a friendly one because no money is taken out of the schools. It's used, whether we wouldn't do that, and the legislation says that we can't. It has
Yeah.
to be used, right, for the schools. So.
Definitely, it's all for the schools.
Right.
Do we have a vote on that? Do we have a motion?
You have a motion in a second, but no vote.
Yeah, let's, all those in favor of the non-lapsing account as spelled out?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 6-0. The last item is the 2021-2022 carry-forward list. This is a list of stuff that's open at the end of the year that we're going to carry that item into the next year, right? So we don't return a surplus, but we say this project or this item is not complete. We want to carry forward the spending, the ability to spend into the next year. And we have $1.9 million on the list to carry forward.
That's for the general.
And an animal control fund, 2,900, and the sewer fund, 1,358,635, that we would carry forward into the next year, just for stuff that was ongoing projects.
The big hits, obviously, if you look at the government side, the big hit is I know this is going to share, is the 27th week that we're carrying over. That's the big hit there for this number. And then for the sewer fund, the big hit is for the lining.
Yeah, lining.
So
yeah.
those are really the big numbers that are causing the carryovers.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any more discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Now we could have our favorite motion.
Before you do that,
Yep.
this will be
Oh,
our
no.
director's last meeting. And I know I've already thanked her, so I'll leave you guys to say all the nice things you're going to say. But on behalf of the town government, obviously, Amelia and I have worked together for
Almost 22.
22 years, and it's been a pleasure 95% of the time. So that's pretty good for any town.
Her
employee.
percentage is much less for working with you, so don't worry about that.
Hers is 50-50, mine's 95% of the time. So on behalf of all the employees and the citizens, Amelia, thank you for all the time you spent with us. So this is her last.
I doubt it is our last meeting.
As finance director, this will be your last meeting as finance director, probably.
Maybe as finance director, but I can see her sitting in one of those two chairs, and certainly appreciate
Wow.
all you've done, Amelia. But it's almost hard to picture, Southington
A meeting
Finance
without me?
without you. And it's even hard for me to come to grips that maybe not this one, maybe not next one, but come September, October, you definitely won't be here, and that's hard for us to.
Handle.
Yeah.
It's been on this team as long as I've been here, since 2009, and prior to that, and being at every meeting and walking us through all the different aspects. I mean, it's a lot, but we become, close as a board and as a department head, and done good work, and just helped every one of us, new members, and through all these issues, and gave your advice, and always took the conservative approach on budgeting, which we appreciate when we later, 9 months later, start talking about surpluses, and we're not talking about, things that we see in the paper, overcapitalization of things, overspending, you name it, putting in revenues, overzealous budgeting of revenues that don't come to be deficits. We didn't have any of that. And we go back all of my years, even before, we haven't had a year of a deficit. So it's been a year of good conservative budgeting, attention to the details. All those awards on the wall, the whole room is full of awards. They're all lined up from every single year from the Government Finance Accounting Organization. So thank you on behalf of the board. Everybody else, please, jump
It's
right
been
in.
great working with everybody. It really has.
Thanks.
Boards.
50-50.
Yeah, Amelia, I really enjoyed working with you for the last 12 years. Mark's going to fill your shoes because you've done a lot.
Appropriation. With an appropriation.
Yeah, you've done a lot, and you've done and running the finance. Job, a lot of responsibilities, and I can, just by being here for 12 years, I see how much relied on you. So, luck, Mark.
By far, the department that I spend most of the time with. By
Oh
far.
yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah.
Right, it cuts across everything else.
Yeah.
There's not,
Yeah.
That's right.
something
It does.
can't occur in sewer or even in the police department, the buying of whatever we dealt with tonight, cameras. Nothing could occur without it having some impact on finance.
Yeah, you touch every department. You're the only one that does that, probably. You and Mark.
No, I don't
Yeah.
spend a lot of time with IT, but you I spend a lot of time. Anyway.
No, I appreciate it personally because every time I asked you for help, you've given it immediately, which is a really good thing. I mean, we're obviously elected by the taxpayers, and it's great to have, the feeling that responsive to that. Again, something that we don't see in other governments, maybe, like our state, but we do with you. But thanks very much. Really.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure working with everybody.
And besides all the work, you've been very personable to each and every one of us, and I really, really appreciate that.
I'll join the chorus here. Thank you. Thank you very much for everything. It's been over a decade now, and I'll try not to get emotional when I say this part, but thank you as well for the pizza. You always came through with the pizza. So we
That would have been the job description of the new person.
That'll be one of the questions I'll ask during the interview process.
How do you order?
How do you feel about pizza?
No, all joking aside, seriously, thank you for everything. There's never been a single time in over a decade that you didn't get right back to any question asked. And we always say at our company when someone's interviewing, if you come and you act like it's your last name on the outside of the building, you're going to do very well. I think you acted like it's your last name in the best sense of that term for this town, and that's noticed and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Motion to adjourn.
We're giving you the month of August off, all of us. There is no meeting.
Oh, yes, sorry. See you. Sorry.
Month after.
Is anybody seconding the motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned at,
good August.
gotta use the right number here, 7:57.
Have a good summer.